Hi, you've reached episode 11 of the podcast series, The Question of God: Has Our Civilization Outgrown God? My name is Sophie Minerva. I'm a professor of philosophy at NLA University College in Oslo. This podcast series is the result of a pedagogical experiment I conducted last year, and 12 episodes have been made. The recording you are listening to is from cafe conversations I had with 4 students about questions related to God. They represented different positions on the God question: theism, atheism, and agnosticism. Our starting point was the book Outgrowing God by the well-known atheist Richard Dawkins. The topic this time is whether science points to atheism or naturalism as the best explanation of the universe. In particular, we will look at multiverses and the phenomenon of the Big Bang and fine-tuning. Let's join the conversation in the cafe. I'm so glad you could join us again, Astrid. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Professor. It's good to be back again. I have missed our discussions.
We are a bit short on time today. I have another appointment, but I think we will have time enough anyway. Hiromi, would you like to introduce Chapter 12 of Outgrowing God for us?
Yes, Professor. Dawkins refers to some historical steps in our knowledge of reality. He thinks that knowing about the beginning of the universe was a big step, but he says that knowing about the evolution of life was an even bigger step. And by the way, I think the word step here is debatable, because in both areas we are dealing with knowledge that is still growing and deepening. Anyway, for a long time, it was widely believed that the universe was eternal. In the last century, that changed completely. It is now generally accepted that the universe really had a beginning. This beginning is popularly known as the Big Bang. The cosmologist Alexander Vilenkin, who is an atheist, said that all the evidence we have suggests that the universe had a beginning. He said this at the State of the Universe conference held in honor of Stephen Hawking on his 70th birthday. And a New Scientist magazine editorial commented on this conference, quote, "The Big Bang is now part of the inventory of modern cosmology." Many physicists have fought it for decades, mainly because of the theological overtones of the theory. After all, if you have a moment of creation, don't you need a creator? Cosmologists have tried several different models to explain the universe without a beginning. The recent research has blown holes in all of them. It now seems certain that the universe had a beginning. Physicists and philosophers are forced to confront a problem that has plagued them for almost 50 years. How do you get a universe complete with physical laws out of nothing? Unquote.
I thought the Big Bang Theory gave us some final answers, not a bunch of new difficult questions.
I think that's a misunderstanding, Thomas. Big Bang cosmology offers a description of the cosmic past as something finite. It is not an explanation of that finite past. That the universe had in fact a beginning makes the philosophical question of why it exists even more relevant, right?
The Big Bang is a description, not an explanation. I get it.
Another question in cosmology is raised by the phenomenon known as fine-tuning. Just as biological life show us complex functional specificity, so the physical laws and constants of the universe show us a highly unlikely, life-permitting set of finely tuned values. Physicist Paul Davies writes of cosmic fine-tuning, quote, "The impression of design is overwhelming. I admit that since the universe appears to be designed, the burden of proof is on those of us who believe that this impression is misleading." Unquote. Davies also writes that positing many universes in an attempt to explain away fine-tuning, quote, "merely shift the problem up a level from universe to multiverse. To appreciate this, one only has to list the many assumptions that underpin the multiverse theory." Unquote. One example of fine-tuning that Dawkins mentions is the strength of gravity. If it had been just a little different, the universe would have been very different. In what way, you might ask?
Okay, I'll bite. In what way?
Dawkins writes, quote, "If gravity had been less than it is, it would have been too weak to gather matter into clumps. There would be no galaxies, no stars, no chemistry. if gravity were just a little stronger than it is, there would be no stars as we know them. They would collapse under their own gravity. No stars, no planets. If no planets, no evolution. If no evolution, no life. Unquote. And he adds, quote, there are more than a dozen of these constants. And in all cases, it can be said that if their value were different, the universe as we know it could not have existed, unquote. So again, we are touching on the subject of probabilities. The numbers that describe cosmic fine-tuning are staggering. According to Dawkins, for the universe to be life-permitting, gravity has to be fine-tuned to an accuracy of 1 in 10 to the power of 40. And this is just one of many physical factors that must be perfectly balanced for the universe to be life-permitting.
Yeah, that's a big number. Just for comparison, the number of grains of sand on Earth is thought to be about 10 to the power of 17. Dawkins is talking about 10 to the power of 40.
Well, I find this to the power of numbers hard to get my mind around. I saw an illustration that I found helpful. The circumference of the Earth at the equator is about 40 billion millimeters, or 4 times 10 to the power of 10 millimeters. So if we imagine that the whole globe is one big dial that has to be positioned exactly so that the gravitational force is compatible with life, then missing the right position by just a millionth of a hair's breadth would mean no stars, no planets, and no life. And even that is a huge understatement of the precision involved. And there are many other physical constants and values that have to be precisely tuned as well. Okay, that's my introduction, Professor Sophie.
Thank you, Hiromi. Fine-tuning is certainly an interesting phenomenon. Any comments? Yes, Astrid?
Thanks. I've made some notes on this. It has been calculated that if the strength of the atomic weak force had been different by only 1 part in 10 to the power of 100, then no life would exist in the universe. That means 1 part of a number with 100 zeros, you see? And like Hiromi just said, there are many physical factors that must be perfectly balanced for the universe to be life-permitting. It has been calculated that the odds that the Big Bang just happened to start out with the exact, highly ordered conditions needed for life are 1 out of 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123. Yes, you heard right. The exponent itself has 123 zeros.
That is a ridiculously big number. It means there are many more zeros in that number than there are atoms in the whole known universe.
Yes, Douglas. This means those who believe that a life-permitting universe came into being by a coincidence don't know what they're talking about.
I'm stunned. That's quite disturbing. This is why you, Douglas, promote the idea of a multiverse, right? The idea that we all exist in the luckiest of universes, the one that got all the life-permitting values right by chance?
That's the basic idea, yes. To be more precise, I believe there are enough randomly tuned universes to make the existence of some life-permitting universes fairly probable. I think that's the most plausible, naturalistic explanation of life.
It's such a mystery to me, Douglas. Where would all these hypothetical universes supposedly come from? Do you imagine there is some physical process somewhere that produces myriads of different, randomly tuned universes? And wouldn't such a multiverse producing reality in itself be extremely fine-tuned and need an explanation?
Maybe.
And in any case, Douglas, referring to what we earlier talked about regarding Thomas Aquinas, wouldn't all these physical things be contingent realities that need a non-contingent cause of their existence?
Well, I'm just not persuaded by Aquinas about that. I think an infinite regress is possible.
As Hiromi said in our previous session, the multiverse theory does seem a bit too convenient, but it does at least save naturalism from being self-contradictory or inconsistent with the evidence from biology and cosmology. I guess I have to take Douglas's side on this.
Maybe the multiverse idea is not self-contradictory, Thomas, but we usually expect more from an explanation than that, right? The existence of God is also not self-contradictory or inconsistent with the evidence from biology and cosmology. Still, you prefer to believe in multiverses instead of God, right? Why is that?
Well,
I would like to pick up on the question about physical realities needing a cause. There is a very old argument for a creator that we haven't talked about. It's called the Kalam cosmological argument. As Hiromi says, the Big Bang is a description and not an explanation. But doesn't it need an explanation? Physicist Paul Davies writes, quote, "It is conceivable that some supernatural force was behind the Big Bang, or one might prefer to regard the Big Bang as an event without a cause. We don't seem to have much of a choice. Either it's something outside the physical world or we're talking about an uncaused event," unquote. The philosopher Dallas Willard set out an argument about this issue that could be put into a series of premises leading to a conclusion. Can I read it?
I see. Is it long?
No, it's 5 short points.
Okay, Astrid, go ahead.
Thanks. It goes something like this. 1. Since the universe probably had a beginning, there was probably a first physical event. 2. As contingent realities, all physical events have at least one cause outside of themselves. 3. Therefore, the first physical event, at the beginning of the universe, would have needed at least one cause outside of itself. 4. The cause of the first physical event could not have been something physical, because then that would be the first physical event. 5. Therefore, conclusion. There was probably a first physical event caused by something non-physical.
And you mean, as Aquinas would say, that's God?
Well, at the very least, the argument supports the theistic worldview, and it fits well with the fine-tuning arguments from biology and cosmology. Taken together, the evidence certainly suggests the existence of a non-physical, powerful, and intelligent creator behind the universe.
That sounds like a reasonable argument. It seems to me that the evidences for a creator are piling up.
Wait a minute. If God is the personal cause behind everything, as you say, then where does God come from? You're just shifting the explanation back a step. You're like Douglas, aren't you, who appeals to a mysterious multiverse? If God is behind it, what is the cause behind God?
But that question assumes that God is the kind of thing that needs a cause of its existence. Contingent things, like physical things for example, require a cause of their existence. But unless you choose to believe there exist an actually infinite regress of causes, something must have a non-contingent existence, thereby also a non-physical existence. We talked about this earlier, and that non-contingent existence is, as Aquinas would say, God.
I'd rather have an unknown explanation than some kind of an invented God to make things fit together.
There's no question of inventing God here, Thomas. God is simply the best explanation for why the cosmos is as it is.
Well, I disagree. Doesn't quantum mechanics show that the universe can come from nothing? Didn't Stephen Hawking show that because there is such a thing as gravity, the universe can create itself out of nothing?
No, Thomas. Quantum mechanics doesn't show any such thing, and Hawking's claim, which he made in his book, The Grand Design, doesn't hold up. First of all, gravity is not nothing. It's also contradictory to say that something can create itself. Several people have called out Hawking on this claim. For example, the physicist David Hutchings and the astronomer David Wilkinson wrote, quote, "Physics absolutely does not allow a universe to emerge from nothing, since the models always depend on some pre-existing law, principle, or the like. It cannot happen," unquote. Let me mention another one, David Albert, a philosopher of science and theoretical physicist. He wrote, quote, "The fact that particles can appear and disappear over time as these fields reorganize themselves is no more mysterious than the fact that my fists can appear and disappear over time as my fingers reorganize themselves. And none of these things amount to anything close to a creation out of nothing," unquote.
I also have a quote here from Oxford professor of mathematics John Lennox, who wrote a response to Hawking's Grand Design book. Lennox commented that Hawking's assertion that because there is such a thing as gravity, the universe can create itself out of nothing is, quote, "not only a contradiction in terms, which would be bad enough, but turns out to be nothing less than a triple self-contradiction," unquote. And he also adds this, quote, "This shows that nonsense is nonsense, even when it comes from world-famous scientists," unquote.
Yeah, Hawkins had a bad day when he published that book. It goes against all reason to claim that something comes from nothing. Still, there are those who believe such things.
That's right, there are. Let's take atheist philosopher Quentin Smith, who said, quote, "The most reasonable belief is that we came from nothing, through nothing, and for nothing," unquote.
Now that's a leap of faith if ever there was one.
But isn't creation from nothing exactly what Christians claim God did?
Actually, Thomas, the doctrine known as creatio ex nihilo, to use the Latin, contradicts what this philosopher,
Quentin Smith.
Yes, the doctrine of creation contradicts what he said. The philosopher said the universe was coming from nothing, through nothing, and for nothing. But the Christian doctrine says the universe was created by God, who is himself uncreated, and that God didn't create the universe out of some pre-existing physical reality, but that God caused even the physical reality to be a thing that exists.
Okay, everyone, we are a bit short on time today, so I'm afraid I'm going to stop the discussion there because I have to go. I'd like you, Thomas, to start us off next time by presenting Dawkins' responses to cosmic fine-tuning. Is that okay? Next time will also be the last time we meet in this series. Time has gone by so quickly. We'll have some cake with our coffee next week. Okay, see you then. You have been listening to The Question of God. Has our civilization outgrown God? A 12-episode podcast series from Biocosmos Norway and Damaris Norway. You can find references and resources online. The script by Birger Elliott Benson and Peter S. Williams was adapted from parts of the book Outgrowing God, A Beginner's Guide to Richard Dawkins, and The God Debate by Peter S. Williams, who also composed the music. All voices, including mine, were performed using AI. The sound editor was Birger Elliott Benson.